Today we're talking missiles in Star Citizen, since there's always been the question of which is the best choice between infrared, electromagnetic and cross-section missiles. And the answer is simple, it depends. But before we look at the actual combat performance of the various different missile types currently in Star Citizen, let me explain some differences between EM, CS and IR types, as well as the different payloads they carry, like cluster, proximity or strike missiles. Now that might sound a bit complicated at first, but bear with me, it's all actually pretty simple. You see, infrared missiles like the Marksman, Rattler 2s or Chaos 3s rely on heat signatures to track their targets and is indicated by the fire icon in your ship's dash. So if your target runs industrial components or anything with a high IR signature for that matter, they'll be easy to lock onto and your missiles will be hard to shake, unless your opponent spams flares. Flares, of course, being the counter to infrared missiles. On the flip side though, what if you're fighting near a hellhole like Hurston or Aberdeen, where tracking a hot target is like trying to find a smart flat earther? Well, anyway, what I'm trying to say is that heat signatures are tough to track when everything is hot.
You know what I'm saying? Well, I'm awake and I speak English, so yeah, I do know what you're saying.
Next up, electromagnetic or EM missiles tracks emissions, also known as, wait for it, EM signatures. This is your ship's power output, so to say, marked with a lightning bolt icon. So the more power you're pumping, the easier it will be to target and keep track of you using electromagnetic missiles. EM missiles can be countered with Chaff, or if you've run out, shutting your systems off and on while decoupled might help you dodge a few. Electromagnetic missiles is a favorite choice for PvP players, as it can be harder to shake for players as opposed to other missile types when launched at the right distance. Then we have cross-section or CS missiles. That's the little Wi-Fi looking icon you'll see when someone locks onto you. These work best against bigger targets, big as in surface wise. They're near useless against smaller, more maneuverable targets, as you'll take forever to find a lock on, let alone actually hitting them. But on the fat, juicy targets, not only will you lock on fast, but your CS missiles will be near impossible to shake. That's if they don't have turrets or PDCs shooting them down. So if you're hunting big targets like VHRT or ERT bounties, cross-section missiles might just be your best option. Whereas EM missiles is ideal for medium targets and infrared missiles for small targets. Now let's talk about the payloads they carry. Payloads fall into three main types: cluster, proximity and strike missiles. In layman's terms, clusters are like the popular Rattler 2 missiles, designed to break into smaller fragments that cause a ton of damage to shields. The downside though is that even though they look awesome as hell, you need all fragments or smaller missiles to hit their targets to get the full damage output. Otherwise it's quite meager damage you're looking at. Next, proximity missiles like the Size 1 Pioneers doesn't need to directly hit its target, but just get near enough for it to explode. The damage isn't as much as strike missiles, but your chances to hit, especially against more maneuverable targets, increases by a lot, since they can't always simply roll and dodge your missiles. Now we'll discuss how different missiles react between space and atmospheric combat, before we discuss which missile types thrive in which situations and environments. In space, missiles travel more straight since there's no atmospheric drag. Also, should a missile miss its target, it will also turn around faster in space as opposed to an atmosphere where gravity and other factors come into play. Because missiles are generally more predictable in space, it also means that even though the majority of missile types are more likely to hit, chaff and flares are also more effective with little or no gravity. Now let's talk weather. Mist, rain, snow and more could affect missile visibility and ordnance. Missiles can curve, swerve, making them harder to dodge but also less predictable. Whereas you don't have this problem in space. But there is something else that comes into play here though, and that's temperature. So let's look at how hot and cold affect your missiles. When we talk about temperatures, infrared missiles instantly spring to mind. But before we go into how temps affect IR signatures, let's talk about CS and EM missiles in hot and cold environments. For cross-section and EM missiles, temperature really doesn't matter all that much. Though EM missiles would cause problems during a lightning storm, I would imagine. Anyway, infrared missiles. In hot environments like Hurston or Aberdeen, you have increased background IR noise, which makes it harder for infrared missiles to distinguish between the target's heat signature and the background heat. The increased background heat can also overwhelm the missile's sensors, shortening the lock-on range and making it easier for targets to evade them. That being said, high heat will also make your flares much less effective because the overall heat signature is already high. In cold environments, the background heat signature, or IR noise as it's commonly referred to, is lower, making it easier for IR missiles to lock onto targets and from a far greater distance. Needless to say that this makes flares also much more effective on planets or moons with cold environments. So to sum things up, IR missiles perform best in cold environments but struggle in hot environments. Space combat allows for greater maneuverability but predictable missile behavior, while atmospheric combat introduces challenges like drag and weather, but can also lead to unpredictable missile trajectories. EM missiles can be countered with Chaff or EMP tactics like switching off your ship, and CS missiles are best for taking down those juicy, slow-moving targets. Check out this video next and choose your missiles wisely. Like, subscribe, and fly safe out there.